On this week's episode of the Procedurally Generated Show, Tony drives in circles and Ethan plays another MMO simulator. Edward DiGeronimo joins us to talk about the upcoming release of his game Antipole. We talk about the week's biggest news and we answer your questions. Howdy, everybody. Welcome to the Procedurally Generated Show. I'm your host, Tony, and joining me this week, I've got Ethan.
Hey, Tony.
Oh.
It's the weekend.
It is the weekend. It has been storming here. I think the bulk of the bad weather has passed. We'll see.
You're just in the eye of the storm now.
There may be another round, who knows, but the lightning seems to have calmed down and the thunder seems to have, gone into the distance a little bit.
Awesome.
So, like I said in the intro, we have a guest this week.
Who?
His name is Edward DiGeronimo. He's from Saturnine Games, and he is working on a game that I have played before on, I believe it was DS, called Antipole. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Doing good. It's a pleasure to be here again.
What's going on in your neck of the woods today?
Oh, not too much. Just a little ahead of you on the weather. I think it's calm here, but same boat here.
But you're apparently getting the tropical varieties of the rain, and we're just getting good old Midwestern thunderstorms.
Yeah, I'm on the East Coast here in New Jersey, so I believe it's a tropical storm that hit us this weekend. It was rough yesterday and today.
I haven't really had to deal with weather like that since I left North Carolina about, 30 years ago.
The age talk returns again.
I'm getting old, man. Getting old.
It's not too bad here. We're in the path of hurricanes, but we almost never hit them. We usually get the tropical storms as they're dying down.
Yeah, by the time it gets to the England area, all of the rain has been dropped on Florida.
I guess I think we had Sandy was the big one we had, which was, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago or something at this point. And, we get them, I don't know, every 10, 15 years we'll get hit by a hurricane, but mostly it's the tail end of the storms when they're dying out.
Well, we will talk a little bit about your game, Antipole, later, but have you had a chance during development to play anything else that you want to talk about?
I have been very slowly working my way through Doom Eternal.
Nice.
I don't know, I think I made it a couple levels in, and I stopped recently when the game crashed on me. I've been dreading going back and replaying.
Oh no.
Well,
Did you lose a lot of progress when that happened?
I think I was near the end of a level, and I was afraid to go back and find out if it kept the checkpoints or not.
I've had it crash on me a couple of times. It's pretty forgiving on the checkpoint system, so I think you'll be good on that.
Okay,
that's good to hear. Probably give that another shot soon then. You're reassuring me.
It's also been a hot minute since I went through. I haven't beat the game either, but I'm several levels in, and I've had it crash multiple times. So,
did you ever play Doom 2016?
Yeah, I played through that. I finished it, and I think I unlocked most of the classic Doom levels in it. So I had a really good time with that.
I haven't had a chance to play Doom Eternal yet, so I don't know anything about the game, but I did see recently they released an update that put out a bunch of new filters over the game. And some of them were pretty interesting looking. Like the black and white one looked really cool, where it just turned it into like an old black and white movie.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I saw some talk about that on Twitter. I want to go back and check this out now that you guys got me thinking about it again.
There was another one that made it. It was supposed to make it look like an OG Game Boy with just like the pea green stuff. But it basically just muddied up the whole screen, so it was really hard to see anything.
It's part of the challenge.
I don't know how enjoyable that would have been. So, but I know the game does looks phenomenal. Like they know how to make a pretty looking Doom game at this point.
Doom has always been bleeding edge graphics and kind of moving the bar forward. And like I don't know if you played the original when it was new, but that blew everyone away at the time.
Yeah. Maybe not the year it came out, but within the first couple of years of its release, I had a chance to play it. I am old enough to remember that.
Yeah. I was in the same boat. I had a computer that could play Wolfenstein, but it was not anywhere near good enough to play Doom, so I didn't get to play that until a couple years later. But it was such a big jump.
Yeah, the original Doom might have been the first time I had a PC that could play game. Might have been the last time I had a PC that could really play newish games. So after that, it was baseball simulators is what I spent most of my time playing.
So you said you played Doom 2016?
I played a little bit of it. I actually couldn't finish it. I got really bad motion sickness playing it.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was just if it was because I was playing it on Switch, or if it was just because the game was really fast. And the only other time I've had an issue with that playing, first-person shooters was BioShock Infinite and swinging around on all of the like zip lines and stuff that they had in that game.
Or are you playing docked or handheld?
Docked, actually.
Okay, I was gonna say my first thought was I've heard that a lot of people do better playing first-person shooters on larger screens.
Yeah.
But if you're playing on the TV, then you're already doing it.
My biggest guess might have been because I think its frame rate is cut in half from the other systems. So maybe
I'm not surprised that's really common on Switch ports.
Yeah, that might have had something to do with it. I don't know, but the speed of that game just made it so that I could not finish it. I got about halfway before I was like, I just have to turn it off, and I can't keep playing this game. I keep thinking maybe I'll revisit it and like play it on the Xbox and see if that fixes it, or maybe even PC and see if that fixes that problem.
It goes on sale on the other consoles for $5 every couple months, so maybe next time you see it, give it a shot.
Because I loved what I was playing. It was a fantastic game as well. It was one of those things that I just happened to be. I was up in Kansas City visiting my sister, and it was on sale. And someone said, "Hey, you can go to the store and get Doom for $12 on Switch." And so I went and did it.
Yeah, it's on sale often on all the platforms now, and I think if you're not on Switch, the sales are a little deeper than Switch. So, yeah, if not, maybe give it a shot on Xbox or PC or something, whatever you're more comfortable in. And I guess it's probably the frame rate's going to help if you get it up to 60 instead of playing at 30.
Yeah, I definitely want to try it because I want to play Doom Eternal, but I want to finish the first one before I jump into the second.
I would recommend that. I feel like Doom 2016 took the core of the original games and added a little to it. And then Doom Eternal builds very heavily on the new mechanics and goes further. So I think you would appreciate it more if you did 2016 first.
It's actually a really good way to say that, because it's definitely going from waking up in a demon infestation occurring around you to, okay, now I'm cleaning up the mess elsewhere. I've had time to calm down.
Yeah, so like Doom 2016, you could play it like the original Doom. You can just go around shooting everything and, get in your big fights and play it the same way, and that works. But they added in the new glory kills, I think they called it. So you get the enemies down really weak, and they start flashing, and then you run up to them and you press the stick in, and you'll do like a really gory kill, and you'll get extra items from it. You'll get like more ammo, more health, and it makes the game easier if you do that, but it's not essential. So
I I sort of always thought it was the way, because I would run out of, equipment all the time, and it would have to try to do the glory kills to get, extra ammo and stuff.
It's definitely a necessity in Eternal.
They cranked that up way more in Eternal. You have to do the glory kills on almost everything, or you're constantly going to be out of ammo.
Yeah, they limited the ammo reserves that you could carry to like, what was it, a third or half or something like that. And so it's just constant low ammo, no ammo.
Yeah, I played them far enough apart that I don't know how the ammo levels compare, but it's significantly lower, and you are running out a lot.
They had a really good reason for it, though, because it was about not having you settle in on a favorite gun and just using it constantly. Like, for me, when I played 2016, I went through with the double barrel the entire time on there as much as I could.
Yeah.
And then you go over to Doom Eternal, it's like, okay, I have to use every weapon in my arsenal now.
Yeah, I remember even classic Doom. I think people loved the double barrel shotgun and used that a lot, and had a few favorites. And you do have to mix it up now. And they took that further too. They've got extra modes on the weapons, so like your shotgun has a grenade launcher attached to it too, and you get like some of these bigger enemies and coming at you, you might fire off that rocket from the shotgun and then finish it off with the shotgun blast. And there's a lot more weak points to it, to the enemies, so you have to get a lot more strategy into it too.
Yeah, the battle damage they show on Eternal is really awesome now too.
The other thing they did interesting in that is, rather than like a steady stream of enemies, there's more like periodic choke points in the levels where you get really big fights.
Yeah.
And you have to manage your weapons and develop a strategy to this. And like you're gonna die a lot figuring out how to make your way through, and you're gonna need to know what enemies are coming and when you're gonna want to favor different weapons. So, you might have this first wave you might want to use your shotgun on, and the second wave save your explosives for, because you're going to have those heavy armor enemies that you need to blow the armor off.
Right. They've also introduced a life system in there too, so it's like you get killed, well, you just respawn instantly.
Yeah, there's like some hidden lives around the levels. You get them every now and then, but I don't think they're that common, so it's just kind of like a little cheat every now and then, it feels like.
A little bit, yeah.
But you can't really count on them, because I feel like any of the big battles, you're going to take a lot of tries to beat. And I don't know, maybe I've got the difficulty too high, but I feel like I spend a lot of time on these big battles trying to figure out the right strategy to make it through. But I don't know, I'm stubborn, and I played the old one on whatever difficulty, so I'm going to play the new one on that.
I am not opposed to dropping the difficulty if I have to. I have been known to play the level on normal and then drop the difficulty for the boss fight to easy sometimes and go back.
They made it easy to do that. You can change the difficulty at any time, and you won't get penalized for it.
That's nice. So, all right. Well, any other Doom talk before we move on? Well, what else have you been playing, Ethan? I've played a little bit of this game that you've got here on the list.
I started Crosscode again.
Again?
Again. This game came out 2 years ago, Tony.
I did not realize that. Yeah. Actually, I thought it was a brand new thing.
It's just now coming out on consoles, and that's why all the hype has been hitting lately on that.
I was wondering, because I've seen a lot of people talking about how fantastic this game is, but I had not seen anything of it until just, a couple weeks ago.
I actually talked about it on the previous podcast that we used to have.
Yeah, we did a lot of those.
Yeah. So those who are not familiar, Crosscode is a retro-inspired 2D action RPG. It's kind of set in a weird future area thing. Uses 16-bit graphics with a fast-paced combat system and a lot of puzzles. So it's kind of combining puzzles and combat, and it's all in a fictional MMO setting. So sort of like your dot hack and your I don't regret saying it, but Sword Art Online garbage, that sort of stuff. So of course I'm gonna have to hop in on this one because I mean I like those MMO simulators as I call them. uh, but I'm just I've forgotten that I had the game until I saw that it was coming out on the PS4 and Xbox One stuff. Maybe even Switch, I think so.
It is out on Switch as well, yes.
Okay, good. And it's really not that taxing of a game, so Switch and all that should be running at all the same levels as far as I could venture a guess based on the requirements for it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely an RPG. You have your stats, your equipment, you get missions, you go out, do them, and make friends with your NPC partners that will team up with you. And so I really just get a full dot hack vibe from it because like I team up with a random person, they're in my party, following me around, we're fighting things together. Then they're like, okay, I gotta log out for the day, and then they leave, and it's like, okay, well, let's go and do some stuff by ourselves, or I can go and eventually get more friends on there, and I can invite them to my party. Probably depending if they see me. I don't know if they have like a system where it's like if they see me in a better light and if they'll try to join me every chance they can or what, but
it seems like a little bit of a missed opportunity to not have this be an MMO inside an MMO.
They might try to make it an MMO
so that you could all of the other characters you see in there are other actual people, and you can team up with them and play through some of the levels together. Even if it's not like an actual, you're not forming a real party, but people that are at the same portion of the game as you can team up with you and play through the game. That would be really cool.
That would be neat. I know Dot Hack actually did that with Fragments. It was on the PS2, so you could actually go and play through the areas that you went through in the actual game, single player game. I don't know if they were all the same areas or not, but I mean, there was only so much data in the game, so you would see similar things, if not the same thing, if you tried the same keywords for the zones. But yeah, it's just kind of nice coming back to this game I've had sitting around on my Steam list for a couple of years, and the major downside was, which this caused me a little bit of a thought process to have a conflict here, is like, do I start a new game or do I load my old save? And the game decided, you know what, you don't have a save anymore, so you're going with a new game, which that's fine because maybe I started this on my old computer. I don't know. If I did, cloud save didn't work. That's fine. Or because whenever I started, this was still like in probably I think a beta, like a late beta whenever I got into it, early access.
Okay.
So actually, maybe I've had this longer than 2 years, but official release date was September something 2018. So it was probably something like early access before that, I guess.
Yeah, so I played about an hour of this because it came out on Game Pass this week. It launched day and date on Game Pass, and I downloaded it and played through probably the first hour. I've been really enjoying the combat. It is definitely like an action MMO type thing where it's just real time type combat. There's a little bit of a mix between melee and ranged. It seems like to me the focus really is more on the ranged portion of it.
It's really up to you to switch between those as necessary.
Yeah, but
for puzzle wise, you're definitely gonna want to use the range stuff for some things.
Mm-hmm. But it seemed with like the first boss that I ran into, which by the way, the first thing you fight that's really big is a giant enemy crab, which I loved. It was a nice touch. But then there was another boss it was a turret thing that you had to fight and you could get close to it, but it seemed like the ranged attack does more damage, and that's where you want to kind of focus. And then, of course, it teleported to another part of the screen and started shooting things at you, and you actually had to use ranged attacks to trigger these like barriers that would block the incoming projectiles.
He doesn't like it whenever you activate those barriers. He turns and shoots those.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're turning that back off.
So it was nice that, there you were able to do a bit of a mix, but it does seem like the majority of the game they want you to focus more on the ranged stuff than the melee stuff.
As you progress in there, you'll get circuit points, and you can go in and modify. Like, you can increase your health, your attack, your focus, and I forget what the other one is, but you have 4 branches you can go off in, and as you go off in those directions, you can actually get like special skills. So you'll get charge abilities and things like that. So like where I'm at right now, I've got an R2 move on there where I charge up and just do a spinning blade attack right in front of me.
Yeah. Does it do cosmetic changes on the character sprite at all?
The only cosmetic change I know of is a 99-cent DLC for having a ninja outfit.
Okay.
And there are 2 codes that do sort of a cosmetic change, not to the character, but to the game and to, well, I guess to your character in a manner of speaking. One of them adds how do I describe this? Like when you start running, it's just all right. There I go. But you turn on this speed lines, then you have like that dramatic effect where it looks like you're going faster, and it's a focus point on you. And that also makes your boss fights have like more eye candy, as we'll say. Like there's just more going on just with the speed lines everywhere. And then you also get these sparkle shoes, which cause like little stars to follow behind you.
That's a great name.
I think it was sparkle shoes. I don't know, but I've ended up going back and turning those all off because they're not needed. They don't. I mean, they're kind of neat to see, but that like the speed lines, it's kind of in the way, and the sparkle things, I don't need them, so I turned those off, and yeah. How's your vocabulary on there, Tony?
I know 2 words.
Awesome. I know 3.
My character can say hi and her name, and that is it.
I can now say the word bye.
I'm assuming at some point that will get, much larger, and the text will just start to
before I remember my previous save game, I had probably 5, maybe 6 words I could say.
Yeah. So the basic idea behind it is that you are playing a character inside an MMO, but something has happened, and
you have no memories, and you're kind of stuck being a mute.
Yes, and they're trying desperately, basically, to patch in the ability to speak to the character.
Well, they tell you you're a mute. I think there's something way more interesting happening that they're not telling us.
So, and it's 1 word at a time right now is what they're doing. So,
she does a really good job having conversations with that limit.
She does. She nods a lot, and nods even more.
So. Oh man, the rival, as I'm gonna call him, the green hair guy, he keeps calling her like blue hair girl or blue hair spearmancer or whatever her class is. Yeah. And since she can say her name, she's like Leah. And he just never registers that's her name. He just keeps talking and runs off.
Yeah.
And there's the look on her face. She's just annoyed as she can be. It's great. But yeah, I'm gonna work on that a little bit. See where we'll go from there. If I maintain interest this time, or if I get bored again. But it seems they got the tutorials down. I can understand the quest lines a lot better than previous, and a whole bunch of other things are not vastly different, but different enough that they make better sense.
Yeah.
What have you been playing, Tony?
I have been playing the hottest, newest release. It actually is. It came out this week. NASCAR Heat 5.
That's a weird way of saying Anthem.
I mean, I did play Anthem this week. Yes.
Let's not talk about that.
There's video evidence of us playing Anthem.
And never again.
Probably not. No, I've been playing the new NASCAR game. Just came out this week. And for the most part, it is basically the same game as NASCAR Heat 4. The developers are 704 Games. They had previous to this year been the publisher of the game, and I think it was Monster Games that was actually doing the development of the game itself. And 704 took over the development this year, and it's actually being published by another company. So they completely just like flip roles here. And they've also said that this is the last year that they're using the current engine for the game, and next year they'll completely revamp it and do something different.
Okay.
So I have played all of the last 4 NASCAR Heat games. I'm a big NASCAR guy. Love to watch cars drive around in circles for 3 hours. It's great fun.
You made the joke. I don't have to say it now. That's great.
So it's mainly just because I'm really bad at the road courses, so I just stick to the ovals. But I have been spending most of my time, like I do early on in the games, in the truck series. That's my favorite part, or favorite series in the NASCAR games to run. I like the trucks more than the cars. For the most part, this is just a tiny little incremental update, some driver changes, paint job changes. They made some tweaks to some small things, like pit stops are a little better now. They're a little more streamlined.
Okay.
But overall, there's not a ton that's different from this one versus last year's. So if you played last year's, you know exactly what to expect. There have been some things, and I haven't noticed a ton of weird things in the game, but I've been seeing some people on Twitter talk about longtime fans who were really wanting some changes made from the last game because there were a lot of bugs and a lot of issues with last year's game to be addressed, and they haven't been updated yet that I know of. So this game really basically is the same as last year's. And I've got a video up with the first looks of the thing. It's on the YouTube channel, so you can see exactly what the game looks like. I'm really hoping that next year we get some changes to the thing. It really needs to be upgraded visually. It's starting to look a little aged. Like the Assassin's Creed games, as they went on, they were using the same engine over and over. You could tell that engine was starting to show its age. The same thing has been happening with this, and they really do need to overhaul it for next year and give it not only a visual, I don't know why I can't say that word, a visual boost. There's some stuff under the hood, no pun intended, that needs to be looked at as well.
So this is an annual game, Tony?
Yes, it has come out annually for the last 5 years.
Okay, it's not on my radar, so forgive me for having to ask, but it's an interesting experience with annual games, how the development on that stuff goes. Usually, you have to get your release out every 12 months about.
Mm-hmm.
So, leading up into that, your release has to be done a couple months before launch.
Yeah.
If you're doing a disc game, you got to get it done maybe 2 months before it hits store shelves. You have to have that final version into certification at the console makers. If you're doing a Switch game on a cartridge, it's more like 3 months. And backing up from that, you have a couple months of just bug fixing and getting it ready for CERT. And you end up with just a couple months each year to actually add new features into the game. You get your couple months in dev, then a couple months bug fixing, and then you're probably going to have to patch the game at some. People usually expect at least 1 or 2 patches for a game.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta usually get your day 1 patch out, and then you see what happens when the game gets in the wilds, because the gamers are going to do things that you never thought to do.
Oh, absolutely.
And and ideally, if your game is any kind of success, you've got thousands of times the number of people playing it as there were during development.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff is going to come out, and you're going to spend a while just panicking, fixing whatever comes up. And that gets the beginning of the cycle for after your release. So you end up with just a couple months each year to add new features and improve things. So it's a lot less than you would expect, and it's hard to make big changes in an annual game that way.
Yeah.
So usually you end up on like some kind of cycle where you might update the graphics, every 3 years, and you might add a big new feature every other year or something, every couple of years. There maybe rotate, this is our graphics year, this is our feature year, and every now and then you might just end up needing a year. We're just going to do minor improvements across the board, just quality of life, make the game smoother, a little better, and not do anything big this year.
Yeah.
It's interesting, just like from my experiences, just being in the industry and seeing how it happens. It's a lot harder than I realized it was when I was playing these sports games.
Yeah. And I imagine the developer change doesn't help that either.
Yeah, anytime you do, that's a rough ramp up. It takes time for a new team to figure out what's there and how it works. And usually anytime you change teams, that first product is very scaled back. They're very conservative in what they do to the game.
Yeah. And I know with them saying that this is going to be the last year for this engine, and they're going to do, they're going to be using another engine next year, that they're basically going to have to rebuild the game from the ground up between this year and next year. So there's a good chance they've had another team possibly working on that already.
Yeah, I would think that's, if I'm the guy planning this out and making the schedules, I would, knowing that this is the last year on an engine, I'd do a smaller team updating that and get most of the team working on next year's game, getting that up to speed in the new engine.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know the game is definitely, it's not bad in any way. It is a good, NASCAR game. And seeing, I watched some videos this week comparing the first game, NASCAR Heat Evolution, I believe it was, to this one, and the difference is night and day. You can tell that the game has improved a lot from what it originally was to this 5th installment. I haven't had a chance to play online yet, so I don't know how the online portion of it handles. It seemed all right last year, and I would imagine it would probably work just as well this year as it did last year. I'm going to try to get a little bit of that done this week, so hopefully I can come back and talk a little bit about racing some people online. I know that's going to be an interesting experience because you have people that take it really seriously, and then other people who the first thing they want to do anytime they're online with other people is just turn around, go the wrong direction, and cause as much havoc as they possibly can. So,
it's
but
interesting. Players, like, you just get some portion of the crowd that just wants to make the experience miserable.
Yeah, and that happens with any online game. Ethan and I have put up with that for a while in like Sea of Thieves recently. Where, you want to get in, you just want to find some treasure. Maybe you run into some other pirates and you have a dance contest, but
That's never the case.
70% of the time, maybe even more than that, the first thing they do is pull out a pistol and shoot you.
Lost many boats.
So, but that's really it for me. I've been playing that. I played, like we said, Anthem, and I've finished up. I think I might have talked about it last week. Finishing up Borderlands, the pre-sequel. I have played through the story of that now.
Cool.
So it's on to something else for a while. But right now, let's take a quick break. We will come back and we'll talk about the news. All right, just a couple of news stories this week. The first one involves Sony buying a portion of a studio, and they this week made an investment of $250 million in Epic Games.
Really?
So yes. And this will be a very small stake. The company is currently valued at about $17 billion. So this would be a very tiny stake in the company, which I think 40% of is owned by Tencent at this point.
Yes.
I was gonna say I thought Tencent owned billions of dollars worth.
They own quite a bit.
Yeah, they own a large portion of Epic Games at this point. Now Sony has a small stake, and a quote from the press release said the investment lets the two companies broaden their collaboration across Sony's leading portfolio of entertainment assets and technology and Epic's social entertainment platform and digital ecosystem to create unique experiences for consumers and creators.
Interesting.
I'm not entirely sure all of what the reasoning behind this from Sony was, and it's a 1.4% stake in the company. It's very small. So
My guess is it gets them a seat at the table when the big decisions are being made.
Probably a lot of it has to do with the Unreal Engine and wanting to have a lot of input in that.
I was going to say that, and probably to help, because Sony's been recently going more towards having games come to the PC now, not just the console.
Yeah.
So might be helping to push them over to the Epic Game Store rather than just on Steam. I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose that's a possibility. I had thought that was one of the things I had thought about was seeing Sony games released on PC and maybe Epic doing a large portion of helping out with getting the PC releases.
Is Epic weren't they looking into the cloud gaming at some point recently?
I don't remember.
Because if so, that might be something Sony's trying to invest in through them now.
That is possible. The one thing we do know is that this won't mean that Epic games are going to be exclusive to Sony or anything.
No, not at all.
So I had seen a lot of people wondering if that was going to be the case, and that's not. They're going to be able to put their games out still on everything.
This might be Sony throws up a little cash and they get better terms on the Epic Store if they release their games there. Mm-hmm. Or it might be about getting a seat at the table when they make the big Unreal Engine decisions. A few ways I can see this going, but I think it just guarantees them a presence when things are going on, and they can make sure that they can guide things a little.
Yeah, my guess is most of this is probably related to the Unreal Engine. It seems the most likely.
That's the big thing for Sony. So many games are becoming dependent on Unreal, especially the really big money games. So they want to make sure that they have a little voice in that.
Maybe, just complete speculation, maybe that gives them the ability to say, hey, we want games made with the Unreal Engine, big games made with the Unreal Engine have a small window of exclusivity for Sony. I don't know if that would be a thing that would go into this deal or not.
I think they'd really be able to do that. If I'm using Unreal Engine, then I've got an agreement with Epic and Sony would be independent. I don't think they would be able to say anything on what other developers do.
Yeah.
And Epic's they got Gears of War and stuff. They got big relationships with Microsoft and other people.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're gonna do anything that would jeopardize that. I was thinking maybe they just want to guide Unreal Engine, make sure it lines up with Sony's goals, and maybe they got some other things like the big Unreal 5. The Unreal 5 reveal was done on PlayStation, and they talked the whole time, this is running on PlayStation. They didn't even want to talk about Xbox. So little things like that, too, have value to Sony.
That's true, because that gets people, thinking about Sony. If, Epic is during their big engine reveal talking about, PlayStation. They just keep mentioning that over and over again.
And the whole talk was, this is what PlayStation 5 can do. This is tuned for the PlayStation 5 and its hardware. And, they just framed it in a way that it makes the PS5 unique. And it's like, this is what only PS5 can do. And it kind of got the talk away from Xbox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting thing to mention. So it'll definitely be interesting to see, because it is a really small, in the grand scheme of things, it's $250 million. That's a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a really small amount of money when it comes to Epic and games.
Peanuts and Fortnite money.
Basically, it's like 100 V-Bucks or something. So, So there you go. And then the other big thing was the announcement of Crash Bandicoot making the jump to mobile platforms later this year. Not exactly the way you would think. It's not like they're not bringing the Insane trilogy to mobile platforms.
I mean, it's hard enough as it is with a regular controller.
Well, now you're going to be playing Crash Bandicoot that is being developed by King, who are, most famous for games like Candy Crush. And this will be an endless runner style game in, the vein of Temple Run or Subway Surfers, something like that. Which makes some
game
it makes sense with Crash Bandicoot, because that's what, basically those first, games in the series were, except you had control over every movement of Crash. In this, you'll just basically be doing side-to-side movement and jumping.
I think that's wise. I feel like mobile works better if you design for mobile. Do something there, use it as something in addition to your core product. Don't try to bring your core product directly to mobile.
Yeah, that's one of those discussions that I go back and forth with people a lot. It makes sense to design mobile games around a mobile, interface, but at the same time, a lot of people now don't have a problem with hooking a controller up to their phone and playing games that way. I don't know. Maybe I may completely be in the minority of that.
I'm just gonna say I know a few people that have talked about that, but I've never actually seen anybody do that.
Yeah. So, but this will be a typical Crash style game. It will Crash, Neo Cortex, all of the familiar faces, but there is a little bit more that you'll be able to expect as well. The trailer showed off the ability to craft weapons for Crash. And then there's some asynchronous multiplayer aspect to it as well. I'm not entirely sure what that's going to be. Whether it's just, I ran this level this fast and got this many Wumpa fruits, can you beat it type thing, or if it's something else. We'll see. But there hasn't been a release date for the game yet, but you can pre-register for the game on Android. It is coming to iOS as well. I don't know if you can pre-register on iOS yet. the news I had seen only specifically mentioned Android. So it will be out later this year. Exactly when, we don't know yet.
Look forward to it.
I have already pre-registered and I have it set to go ahead and install the second it's ready. So I'll play it, give it a try, see what Crash Bandicoot on mobile is going to be like.
I just tried searching the App Store on my iPhone and did not see anything for Crash Bandicoot.
Okay.
So
I don't know if
iOS eventually, probably.
Yeah. It is supposed to be coming to both iOS and Android, but it looks like you said, only Android is available to pre-register at the but that is it for the news. So let's get on to a little bit of talk about your upcoming game, Antipole DX. Can you tell us a little bit about just what it is, first of all?
So, a bunch of years ago at this point, we made a game on DSiWare called Antipole, and it's a 2D platformer. It's got the classic Mega Man kind of vibe to it, your basic jump shoot, but the hook here is you have the ability to reverse gravity. And when you do, it makes a bubble around you, and inside that bubble, anything that else is there feels the gravity change too. So if you flip gravity near an enemy, the enemy will go up too, and you'll start fighting it on the ceiling, or any other hazards that are around you, they'll go up too, and it changes how you think about this. You can use it to get around or to solve puzzles, fight enemies. There's a lot of different ways to play with it through the game. And we like the game on DSi, and people really loved the gameplay, but at the time we were starting out as a business, and it had a very basic look. It wasn't what we hoped it could be, and I think that held the game back. So we decided a few years back to redo this game. We recreated every single piece of graphics, all the music, everything. The levels are even redesigned from scratch using the originals as references. So it'll be very familiar if you've played the original, but it's been recreated, improved, redesigned. Everything is new, everything is expanded on. We got in a bunch of ideas that we wanted to do originally, but cut due to time or other reasons, and we got a much better game. It's a bigger game, it looks great, and all around improved. And now we're going to be bringing it out soon to Xbox One, PS4, and Steam. There's also a small chance Vita might happen too. It's running on Vita, but right now Sony's got limited testing capacity, so they aren't accepting Vita submissions. If that changes, then we'll have it on Vita too, and it'll be cross-buy.
I know a lot of people who own Vitas that would love a new Vita game.
Yeah, they feel like the Vita audience, it's smaller than most systems, but it's a die-hard audience, and I think they're into like a lot of smaller indie stuff like this.
Yeah. The people who have a Vita love the Vita. That is, I think that is
a good
absolutely
system,
true. So,
yeah, they got that core audience that loves it, and they just were never able to expand the audience big enough to make the system a hit.
Yeah. And I played the game on DS, and I really enjoyed it. You recently had a demo available for it on Steam, and I actually played it on Steam on my phone. So that's the way I played through the demo for the PC release. And I really liked. I think it was 3 levels.
Yeah, there are 3 levels.
It seemed like a really nice upgrade to the original version of the game, and it was really satisfying to see an enemy walking around on a platform. You're like, I'm not going to bother shooting you. Just flip gravity and have them fall onto the floor where the spikes are down at the bottom, and watch them blow up.
That is one of my favorite aspects of the design. We just have a rule that if anything hurts you, it hurts the enemies too.
Yeah.
So you can do things, if you see a hazard, you can flip gravity and force your enemies into the hazard and kill them that way. And a lot of times that's a lot easier to do than trying to shoot them.
Yeah, because there are definitely some times where enemy placement might make it a little difficult to get to the platform they're on to shoot them, but just flip the gravity and move them around a little bit, and it makes it that much easier. So there's a little bit of a puzzle aspect to the platforming in that respect as well.
So I think the levels that were in the demo were all levels that were in the original DS game. I wanted to try and do that so anybody like you that had played the original could see the difference. And I also didn't want to spoil the surprise and show the new levels already. Wanted to give you something to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the new content. Can you talk about how much new stuff there's going to be in the game this time around?
I believe the original game was 20 levels and then 12 bonus levels you could unlock by collecting the coins that are in each level. And the new game is 25 and 25.
Okay.
And we went through, I believe there were a couple levels from the original that we merged into other levels. I kind of went through each one, and the weakest spots I cut out, and I added new content to every level. So every level is longer than it was in the original game. A couple were merged, and some all new ones. I want to say maybe a third to a half of the quest is new content.
Yeah.
And I was looking at this a while ago. I forget. I think there were something like 250 rooms in the original game, and it's at about 450 for the new one. So it ended up being a significant amount of new content added.
Nice. I know. I'm really liking the upgrade to the visual style, and I don't know if it's just because I'm not remembering. It's been a while since I've played the game, but it seems like some of the platforming is a little bit tighter this time around than it was.
I did redo the physics. I went through, and I think the player is less slippery now, and you can turn tighter than you could before. And I kind of went in, and what I did was just all the numbers and the physics equations. I went in and I changed them a lot to make the game feel different, and then I balanced it from there to try and see maybe there's a better point for this. And I got it to a point I'm happy with, and I think that it just feels tighter this time around.
Yeah.
It's still a fast game. But I think you just got that tightness to it that wasn't there before.
What has the development process been like for the newer consoles compared to the DS? I imagine it's a little bit different this time.
Yeah, the big change is we had on the DS, the graphics were really old style GPU before shaders existed.
Mm-hmm.
And to move forward, we had to redesign to modern GPUs, which the whole rendering pipeline is different than it was before. So it took a big restructuring of the code and a lot of learning just to figure out how it works and how to get it fast. And I originally started out doing this targeting the 3DS, and that's got a really weak CPU. So if you're not efficient in this, you just can't get the screen rendered fast enough. So it is a little interesting trying to learn this stuff without any extra horsepower. So I had to get this from the beginning to get it right. I remember I got the DS version running on the 3DS, just as is, the old graphics, old game, and it started running at 15 frames a second in 2D. In 2D, And eventually, once I spent a while learning how it works and optimizing it, I got it to a perfect 60 frames a second with 3D on, and it was great in the end. And from there, once you had 3DS running at that speed. Going to any of the consoles was trivial. And I think I remember when I got it running on Xbox One, I ended up like looking at the CPU meter, and it was like a couple percent of one CPU core, and you've got like 6 cores to work with. So it was the Xbox doesn't even blink to run this.
Yeah. So, and it is coming to the Xbox, and there will be a demo available soon, right?
Yeah, Microsoft has an event coming up. I believe it's July 21st to 27th. I'm just checking my notes. Yep. So it'll be available whatever your local time is. You can play the game on those dates. You just go to the Xbox store and there should be a special section showing up. They haven't told us exactly. And the game will be there. You can download it, and anytime during that week you can play. It's going to be the same demo that you played on Steam. It's 3 levels. It's the first 2, which are kind of the introduction to the game that ramp you into it. And then I threw in one from the middle of the game to give you a challenge.
So yeah, I'm really interested in playing the game on the Xbox this time around. Because I did play the demo on Steam. I played through the 3 levels. It's not a very long demo, but it gives you a good idea of exactly what to expect in the game. So is there going to be a demo on the PlayStation as well, or is that just?
I haven't heard anything about Sony doing any events.
And I know with this deal that Xbox is doing, I think they've talked about possibly 60 to 80 demos that will be available during this period of time. So,
yeah, I think it's going to be a lot. They basically just sent out something to all developers that had a game in the works and said, here's the deal. We've got this event coming up. If you want to be in, then get your stuff in by this date, and we'll let you know. And it sounds like a lot of people took them up on that.
That's one of the things when they announced this, I was really excited about it, because one of the things I've always wanted for years around E3 time was the ability to play the demos that the people on the show floor were playing, and we just never got that chance. And with everything that's happening right now, there's a lot of changes being made to the way information is getting out to players right now, and I like the fact that we're going to this year be able to do that, and I hope that's something that continues.
It's an interesting thing. I've done events before. I wasn't at them in person, but some other people on the team were. Have you guys played Sports Friends? It was an early PS4, late PS3 game. It's a collection of local multiplayer games that have a vague sports theme to it, and it was Sony had backed it a lot. It was like Pub Fund when they were doing that, and they gave it a lot of promotion and showed it at some of their events. And I did the console ports on that. I was one of the people that did it. And we showed at, maybe it was PlayStation Experience, some major event. And we had somebody there with a demo build. And we were terrified the whole time of the game crashing. And one of the reasons we were there is just to be able to reboot the PlayStation and get the game back up and make sure nothing went wrong. And I think a lot of games are in a state like that, where you're crossing your fingers the whole time saying, please don't crash. And this one, they gave it to us. They're like, you want to make this public? It's up to you. And hopefully I think the games are going to be in a better state.
Yeah.
But
I know it is always a risk putting a game out that's really early in development like this, and it having some issues, especially issues that you know about that you're working on, and people are like, this game doesn't work, it's broken, this is messed up, and then having a lot of negative feedback about that whole thing, and then people not being interested in the game after that because it didn't work during the demo. Also, at the same time, you also then have to understand it is just a demo. This is not the final thing. It's early in the process. So understand that going in, and a lot of people I think do understand that going in, but
I think the people that are more into the industry that follow it more know that, but the more casual people don't, and they're used to demos being something that comes out after the game is launched or whatever, and based off the final product.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're a little afraid of what the expectations are going to be. And I think I've noticed Microsoft has been very careful about trying to talk about that when they talk about this event.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. I know there are a few games in this event that I'm really interested in looking at, like Antipole or that bird skating game, the Tony Hawk. That's actually you're a bird, skatebird, I think it is called.
Yeah, I gotta check that out too. I keep seeing that come up in my Twitter circles with talking with other devs, like that gets mentioned. So that's my eyes on that too.
So, well, do you have anything that you would like to do with Antipole after it comes out? I imagine you're probably pretty late in the process at this point.
Yeah, at this point where we've got a very small list of bugs to look at, a lot of them is just things like, play through the entire game and make sure every achievement works. Make sure every sound effect is in. Just a lot of it's just coverage. Play the game over and over, checking specific things. And a very tiny list of things. If this isn't that hard and we have time, it'd be great to add it, but I'm okay with not adding. So we're really running this list down low at this point, and I'm hoping to start submitting to Microsoft in the next week or two.
Do you have a time frame that you're hoping to actually release the game?
I'm guessing it's going to be late summer, early fall.
Okay.
I've worked on a lot of games that are on PlayStation and Xbox, but I haven't done it the publishing side of those platforms before. So I'm going through it, and I've run into issues in the past. We've tried to release on Xbox before, and I got to the point where I've sent a build in, and then they came back, oh, this isn't done on the business side. You've got to do that before we can accept your build for testing. And then it ended up taking 3 or 4 months to resolve. And at that point, I ended up being really busy on the business side, doing things, crunching on other projects. And it's all right, well, now that that's resolved, I got to delay the game several months while I go work on other jobs, and then I'll come back to this. So that's a fear in the back of my mind, but I think that those issues would have come up by now. I think we're really going to be getting it into testing within the next few weeks. Once Xbox is in, I'll get the Sony version in, and kind of got to go through them one by one a little and line them up. Once they're all through approval, we can get them out. Ideally, same day or at least same week. Say all the different platforms ready to go.
I know one of the things that you and I have talked about, and I'm a really big proponent of, are the different streaming platforms that are, available now for players. With the game coming to Steam, I know they, recently announced that they've partnered with GeForce Now for cloud streaming of Steam games. Is that something you've thought about? Do you see the game coming to GeForce Now?
I have looked into it. I'm not opposed to it, but at this point, I'm juggling several different platforms and trying to get through all their rules and make sure I get everything done. So I'm a little hesitant to add more to my to-do list.
Yeah.
But, if it's something like, oh, just check this box and it's allowed, absolutely. If it's not a ton of work, I'll do it. I mean, if it's significant, I'll look into it probably after the game releases on the current platforms.
Yeah, my understanding with the GeForce Now Steam partnership was basically just you whitelist the game and make it available for people who are subscribed to GeForce Now. Of course, they have to own the game on Steam to be able to play it. It's I'm not 100% sure of the process, so I couldn't really tell you for sure. But as far as I'm aware, that's the way it works with that partnership in particular.
Some of the services are like that. Some of them, like Stadia, you're doing a special build that's running on a server and that's a custom operating system and all that. So like Stadia would be way too much work to even consider at this point. But if GeForce Now is just something that mostly works as is, then I'd be happy to do it. And I think Microsoft's Project xCloud is the same way. So anything like that, I would be happy to support.
Nice. And there are probably a few people that would be really appreciative of having the game on services like that. Ethan, do you have any questions for Ed before we finish up tonight?
I was really just pleased listening to y'all talk.
Oh, we have talked many times in the past about stuff, so a lot of these conversations we've had before. But yeah, so I'm really interested in seeing the game out and getting the reactions from other people who maybe didn't play it on the DS, didn't know about it on the DS, and seeing what a new audience thinks about this game.
I'm excited to get it out there, and the people who played the original game loved it. And I've been demoing this game at any events I can get to. I do a lot of stuff in the New York area, and I take the game any chance I get, and I just bring a couple of levels to show and get people to play. And I've probably watched over 1,000 people play the game at this point, and people enjoy it. I'm excited to get it out there and see people play. I hope that people discover it once it's out there.
It should be interesting. Is there anything else you want to mention to people before we head out?
I think we got over the big stuff, and I will give you guys more details as soon as I know. But I said the big thing at this point is trying to juggle a couple different platforms and get everything lined up for a simultaneous release. And I'll let you know as soon as I know how that plays out.
Excellent. Do you have a pricing in mind for the new platforms?
I imagine we'll probably be in the ballpark of $15 probably. That's pretty standard for indie games nowadays.
It's reasonable.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this week.
All right. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure, Tony.
Is there any place people could find more information about the game, or if they just want to hear more from you?
Twitter is probably the best place, at Saturnine Games. I'm trying to update the website, SaturnIneGames.com, Facebook as well, but Twitter is probably my most frequent source.
All right. Well, thank you very much again for joining us. And I guess, Ethan, that will be it for the show this week.
All right. Cool. And it was a really great show. Yeah. I never know what to say during these. That's why it sounds awkward.
Just say see ya.
See ya.
If you want to reach out to us, we have new ways to do so. You can email us at procedurallygeneratedent@gmail.com. If you like what we do, you can support us on Patreon by going to patreon.com/PGENT. Patreon supporters get the video version of the podcast a day early. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/ProGenInt. Check out our YouTube channel, and we still have that famous Facebook group where you can interact with us on a daily basis as well.